NWSL offseason trades and transfers are crazy. The signings are coming out of everywhere. Let's give you a roundup of everything that's happening so far. Angel City FC, they've announced that they have signed Japanese defender Mayaba Moriya to a 1-year contract through 2025 with an option for 2026. Bay FC, they've picked up 2-time NWSL champion and defender Kelly Hubley. She was out of Portland as a free agent, decided she wasn't going to stay. She's just moving a little south, going to Bay FC for 2 years. Gotham FC have announced the addition of longtime NWSL goalkeeper and former club captain Michelle Betos as an assistant goalkeepers coach. She's added to the mix. Yasmin Ryan, former Gotham player, forward now at Houston Dash. She has signed a 3-year contract extension already with Houston. So the 2-time champion is staying with the Dash. And then Orlando Pride, they have acquired Zambian international forward Priska Chalufia on immediate transfer from Liga MX Femenil side FC Juarez. It's an undisclosed fee for the Zambian international, but Orlando Pride feeling like they are wanting to be contenders remaining at the top of the table. I mean, D, when you look at Orlando signing this Zambian international and the moves that they've made, and frankly, all of these trades, it says that they want to win. They want to do the double again next year for Orlando.
Said, hey, no one can handle Zambian international Barbara Branda. Bring them out, bring them out. It's the African takeover in the NWSL. I love it. I love that they're bringing in players that I think keep adding just another level of competition to this league. And then bringing in a player that you already know has chemistry with Barbara Banda. They played together in AFCON at the World Cup. It's Zambia. It's just a way to add so much more of a threat going forward. I mean, 2 Zambian forwards going against any team in this league, seeing what we saw from African players last year is going to be so tough to play against. I'm excited to see how they play together in this league, let alone how other teams try to defend Orlando. And I think it's a move that makes sense with them losing Adriana. I expected them to sign another international and especially a forward. So this makes a lot of sense for Orlando. And I think, did we all predict that they would repeat? I believe.
Did we?
I think I did. Let me say that.
Not watching these
the morning footy's creeping into the
it might be. It probably is. But I do think Orlando has the opportunity to repeat. I mean, they haven't made a ton of changes. I think that they're reinvesting into the players that they already had, which we don't see that from a lot of clubs. Gotham. So I like this. I think that they're going to rock with it. And another one I love, I cackled when I saw that Houston already signed Yaz again. They saw her in preseason. What? Yep.
Yeah, we want her.
She wants 3 years. Let's go. Shout out. Yes,
I know.
Houston,
I love Kelly Hubley. I love Kelly Hubley to Bay. I think this is a really good move. When Kelly Hubley announced she wasn't returning to Portland, I had her circled on my free agency list as someone needs to pick her up because she can play in the center back position. She can play in the outside back role. She's a veteran in this league. She has a lot of leadership. And I think this is a good move because now when you look across the back line of Bay, they have Caprice Didasco, Abby Dahlkemper. They have now Kelly Hubley adding into the mix. Alyssa Milan, Emily Menges. Like, they have a lot of defensive depth. I wonder if we could see maybe a formation change from Albertine Montoya, 3 back. That's what I'm thinking, D. I'm thinking.
Let's go. Albertine loves to attack. I think the 3 back makes the most sense for maybe the style they want to play.
I agree with these players that they've brought in. It would be great. It will be really fun to see. That's my shout from this list that I'm like, heck yeah.
Yeah, maybe we also, maybe we get a little bit of a different start for BFC now that they've shored up some things in the back. I mean, they had a wild first half of the 2024 season, and we saw them conceding goals, and that provided a lot of chaos and a lot of fun for neutrals. But when you're on that side of it, it's deeply frustrating. So I would imagine that getting even more veteran presence along the back line is going to be helpful to them. But come on, there's been so much chatter about transfers over the last week. It's even bled into this week because some other things are getting official. We only touched on the reporting around Tarciani leaving the Dash, going to Lyon. Now that's official. So that's in the news as well. Kira Walsh, another one of these targets for Chelsea, and not just any target, one of the best midfielders in the world, and another world record transfer fee made. Like, that's 2 in what was ultimately less than a week for Chelsea. It's I hate to even use the framing of like insanity, but I just don't have other ways to articulate that. I mean, it was one thing for us to kind of react to the Americanness of it all with Girma going to Chelsea and what does it all mean? And we all had a lot of fun with that. But to just do it again, just so casually within the same window for another player, an English, superstar, and just to bring her into the fold as well. It's part of those reasons why I think we can all agree that Chelsea's going to continue to run away with Women's Super League.
And Chelsea signed Keira Walsh for 4.5 years.
And
they are playing the
long.
They're playing the long game.
It's going to be that spine is going to be ridiculous with
Guillermo involved.
It's just like, and you're just thinking of like it's currently fine. It's fine as it is, but it's just going to be like outrageous moving forward too. But I think in part of our discussion, I think at one point I had mentioned that I wouldn't be surprised if in a few years we would see that transfer number rise to potentially like 2 million. And now I'm like, that actually might come sooner. I think I mentioned something like, like 2030. Like I'm officially crazy because I'm like, if they're just increasing like that in the span of a week, like what's it really going to look like? Not so much in a few years from now, but really maybe even just as soon as next year. But I know for me, who among us doesn't love to read their own work or listen to their own voice? But I miss Darian so much, and I kind of wanted to give her the opportunity to maybe bookend this a little bit, because I want to hear from a player perspective side of things, and just what was your reaction, just sort of watching, listening, seeing all this stuff kind of unfold on a beach of all places, just relaxing.
I did get FOMO a bit. I loved the last episode you guys did. As I was listening to it, I was like, dang, I wish I could have been a part of it, and kind of added my own thoughts, because yes, there's the argument made that the NWSL is one of the best leagues in the world. Some people say it's the best. I think when you take a step back and look at how small the league is still, we don't have as many teams as Europe does. We don't have the same competitions. We don't have the same opportunity to play on different tiers professionally as Europe does. And I think that with that, because European teams are so much more established, I'm just talking Europe, US. I'll talk a little bit Liga MX, but the NWSL has so much, I think, on the back end to work out of how teams are brought in, how organizations are run, that players now don't have to stick in the NWSL, especially if you're a big name player. Why would you not go to a legacy club like a Chelsea, like an Arsenal, Lyon, whatever team you want to name, get paid more, you have finer facilities, you have more of a culture of football that you're walking into. You're playing against competition you play in at World Cups, at Olympics, Champions League. There's so much opportunity to add depth and a different level to your game. And what a brilliant thing that soccer is, that when you're a pro athlete, you're paid to go kick a ball on a soccer field. Why would you not go live in another country to do that? Why would you not have that experience when you're younger? I always tell players, my biggest advice, go play overseas. That's my favorite thing I ever did in my playing career. I'm so happy that I did that, especially when you can go make more money. Now, when you take a bigger step back, looking at the NWSL, and we criticize the NWSL a lot. San Diego is a team that we can look at. I think there's a lot of players that maybe we thought would be going to San Diego that are signing elsewhere. You have one of the biggest players in the world, Naomi Girma, that's leaving. That's your franchise player. Watching these players leave the NWSL is going to make the NWSL have to step up in ways that we've never seen. And I think at a much quicker rate, because with the CBA, I know I'm going on a rant, but with the CBA, looking at how, when I read it, I didn't think it was going to service players that are kind of in the middle ground of the league. Maybe you don't start, maybe you don't get minutes every game, maybe sometimes you don't travel. Well, a team's going to look at that and say you've been playing for 3-4 years, you're more expensive to them and maybe more of a pain because you want better standards and you're going to complain more about that than a younger player who there's no draft anymore that's going to come in and accept something a little bit less to just get playing time and have a pro playing experience and see if it works out. And I hope it does. But I think that the NWSL is missing something in that of players that have that veteran experience that maybe isn't going to work out in the long run. I think there's a lot TBD with that, but I like the competition between leagues pulling and circling players. You have to step up and vice versa.
Now's also the time for these players to do it, because we have a U.S. international specifically. We've got a chunk of time before the World Cup in 2027. Now's the time before the next major international tournament. Go overseas, get experience, go up against other World Cup center backs or forwards that you will have to defend against or go against. I like it. I like it.
Yeah. Same. I think we were all
get your bag.
I think we're mostly all in agreement that we're just like this is it. This is the move. But I think what's been the most entertaining thing about this last week, and as we're kind of bookending it now, is just like how it kind of brings up all of these other like sub conversations, which I think are really important ones to have. And I know that we feel like we'll probably want to revisit them in the future, but it is bringing up discussions around salary caps and how they look in the United States and NWSL versus in Europe and in other leagues. I know we have narrowed the lens to like Women's Super League because that's been a lot of the news between the two leagues over the course of this last transfer window. But what does it look like in England? What does it look like in France? And so on and so forth. And it brings up questions about roster building, in a year where NWSL also no longer has the draft. So it's been a wild week. But I love that we got your piece on it, Darren. I just didn't want us to go another day without hearing from you about it.
I have reading the comments, and there's a lot of people talking about do you actually get paid more, blah, blah, blah. Yes. Depending on where you go, yes. It's interesting in Europe, the setup for bonuses is different. As a team, you can negotiate in some clubs what your bonuses are going to be if you knock out a team like Lyon, if you play against Barcelona, if you qualify for Champions League, if you score 2 goals against this team. You can negotiate in a way that you all get paid. There's a lot more opportunity to do that than how restricted the NWSL can be, especially if you're not a top tier player. So just wanted to answer about that.
I was going to say, maybe correct.
Yeah, go ahead, Sandra.
I think we might have the same question. I was going to say, like, would you say that like the contract stuff, depending on the type of players, depending on the type of contract, like, I mean, we saw it even in the transfer. Girma's Chelsea transfer at 1.1 and Neishwanger's transfer at 100. We're talking about a literal $1 million difference. And I would assume that would mean that the eventual player contracts will also potentially be different. But for some players, and I'm not saying it's these two players, I'm just speaking in generalities. For some players, the difference of like $10,000 more playing overseas versus not getting that at home, quote unquote, is a huge difference maker.
Massive. And you get to go live in another country, experience a new culture, and get better at the game. Why would you stay? That's why I think with the Canadian League as well, we're seeing players that, you know what, maybe didn't get a lot of playing time, didn't travel, wanted more opportunity. That's where you're going to go. You're going to get more money. You're going to get playing time. You're going to get better bonuses. I would leave too. And especially if the NWSL just wants to go with younger players and that's how you want to develop your team, do it.
Mm-hmm. And even the players that we are talking about, Girma, Neishwanger, even Caroline, these are young players early in their professional careers. Now is definitely the time to go experience, because you have so much more room in your toolbox to continuously add things to your game and experience it. I agree. It's very interesting about the contracts. Is that set up because of the NWSL or like American economics?
My experience playing in the NWSL, it's hard to really finagle specific bonuses unless you're MVP contender, a team that's going to win the championship and you play a lot. You can include, you know what, if I make second best 11 championship, blah, blah, blah. But to put in specific, like, hey, I score 5 goals, I want this bonus. It's difficult. You get a lot of pushback. Mm-hmm. Whereas in Europe, it is much easier to do that. There's a much greater incentive to do those things. I also want to point out the NWSL, that's a lot of pressure, say a Naomi Girma, to be the face of San Diego with everything going on. If I'm her at her age, I don't want to deal with that. I want to go play. I don't want to have to be getting asked about front office stuff, or it be a thought of who else I'm going to play with in the back line because we're losing everybody. players shouldn't have to think that way. And I think honestly for women's soccer and women's sports in general, it's always put on the shoulders of the player to make things better and just put up with it. Now you don't have to. So NWSL teams have to step up.
I love it. Thanks for your insight on this, Dee. This was cool. This was a good combo.
Welcome. Thanks for letting me rant.